Anyway, going back to the IEM Cologne scenario, luckily, here's the good side about what happened. Even if Liquid had made it, Liquid probably does lose to it. Luckily, this final was always destined to happen. It was always going to happen. Like, these are the two best teams. These are even the teams, by the way, that I even think have the cool element of a true rivalry, where each of them really does think they're number one and that the other one's slightly worse. They really do. Like, the FaZe guys clearly think they can win. But if you notice, every time Semmler, Na'Vi wins these semis and is about to go play the major final, about to go and play this final against FaZe, they always in the interviews say they're the best and that they're going to win and that they're number one. So what I love is this, right? It's not just that you have like back and forth. What you want is like a true rivalry, because what makes this match great, in my opinion, Na'Vi versus FaZe, is just the eye test tells you both teams could win all these matches. Like, I saw people doing that on the major final. Look, if you want to criticize the major, here's what you can criticize. You could debate maybe they shouldn't have like drafted Nuke as their map. That's one angle. The other angle is like, obviously Simple didn't play Superstar CS, but even then he wasn't like, it's not like he fed the whole game. That's about it. Aside from that, Na'Vi was still in that final. They almost won the Inferno game. It would have been 3 maps. In this one, by the way, if you're a Na'Vi guy, I get why you'd be upset you lost because it was so close. But mate, this was one of the closest finals I've ever seen play. Like, there's a world absolutely Na'Vi wins this. Na'Vi could have 3-0'd it, mate. Like, this was a really great match, and it was one where at the end, look, I know no pro players really going to agree with my sentiment because they can't. They're pros who played the game, but I actually feel similar. Like, if you're ever in a truly epic match like this, it's a bit like in the UFC. You know, if you have like an amazing UFC title fight, even if you lose on some level, you're going to just be kind of like proud. Like, I was in like a classic match though. Like, that's going to be remembered. Like, that was like true entertainment. That's what that final's like. Like, even if you're Na'Vi and you're lost, like, just thanks for the game. It was fucking amazing. It was a brilliant match.
This is like the final that pushed everything to extremes now.
Yeah.
In terms of like the current meta, how the game is played, how long. Like, to me, it's still free. Like, I know I was talking about it on the broadcast because we did that watch party together. Like,
7-hour watch party, of course.
8 hour, yeah, the 8-hour long broadcast. It was like 7 hours worth of finals. It was just like, holy shit. Now, so just imagine staying sharp in a game like Counter-Strike where you can't just like go off, and it's not like I was trying to think about it where it's just like, you got those guys who run like ultra marathons or whatever, and it's like, they just get off into their happy place. They're not necessarily focused, dialed in 100%. They're kind of just like one foot after the other.
Out a bit.
Don't think you have my trick. I have my trick of thinking like, oh, it's just one more step, it's just one more mile, it's just whatever. But they're not like fucking dialed in, like zeroed in on the screen, really watching everything the way that you have to be in order to play a match of CS. These guys did that 5 maps for fucking 7 hours and are still playing elite level CS, not missing a beat. Just like, holy shit, the level of stamina involved with these guys being able to compete like this was nuts. And I know everybody's like, oh, well, they play 12 hours a day, that's just a regular thing. It's like, not all of them, and not on a main stage in front of an arena.
Oh, a live match is different from just scrims, of course.
It hits different.
Of course.
You're the adrenaline dump, the big rounds, the crowd, the reaction, everything. Your blood is spiking all over the place. You're doing like, it's all just the physical aspect of the game kicks in like none other, compared to being, to playing at home, which was always the criticism of online CS. It's just not the same. And here you have a best of 5 final that goes all the way, and these guys are still playing at an elite level. I
know how to solve the problem.
Really blew my mind.
If there's a team out there that complains that, but the stamina you need for a best of 5, so all right, I'll just hire.
I don't like that argument.
No, just hire David Goggins. Just have David Goggins be the coach. Get hard, like Nico. Come on, you fucking pussy. We're just gonna quit now. Fuck off. Like, that'll be amazing. He'd
carry the logs.
Exactly,
dude.
Exactly,
But that is the thing. Okay, like, it goes either way, because this would have been.
I forgot about. No, it was the boats. Yeah, like, who's going to carry the boats?
Who's going to carry the boats?
The boats, Nico. The boats.
Who's going to lift the logs? They don't know me. Yeah, dude. Goggins is the shit. If you don't know Goggins, go and check Goggins out.
It's definitely a good Google.
Fuck with your head.
Google that.
All right. What do you like? All right. Already though, because this was kind of like the idea that we were kicking around, where it's like, this could have been equally an epic best of 3 with how close it was.
Oh, of course, sure.
As far as the maps, but like, in a best of 3, do you think we see Overpass or Ancient, or do those maps not happen at all, and we get the Inferno, Mirage, Nuke, Veto?
That's the other aspect to best of 5 that no one ever brings up. You notice best of 5 also tests the map pool. You really get to go all over the place. You have to really prove that you're consistently good, because I agree, in a final, and by the way, especially when it's 2 teams who are like both think they're number 1, etc., I think this is way more likely like teams would have just done like the handshake and played the middle maps, and then you try and do that, because that's the downside also to a BO3 is, what if both teams try like the punish pick as like some crazy shit? It can also ruin the series. It means that you both try to pick like the map that's the worst for the opponent, and it might make it, you might win it, but it might make it a bad game,
Yeah. Yeah, that was what I was worried about as well going into it. But like thinking back on it this morning when we were looking at it again, it's just like it could have been an epic best of 3, obviously, because Mirage and Nuke and FaZe clearly had a game plan for Mirage. They clearly had Na'Vi figured out on that. And Na'Vi, like Na'Vi were fair enough to them. They were saying they were making loads of mistakes themselves. But I mean, some of those mistakes, they're not unforced. It's Kerrigan getting in their heads. It's the players on FaZe's side that are prepared and got an idea of it. And then Nuke as well. Like FaZe had a game plan on Nuke. They looked really dialed in.
Oh, by the way, that's one thing that has pissed me off recently. I will say, unfortunately, it's because Na'Vi has an enormous fan base. So it means you're going to get a lot of stupid people within that fan base. But I've seen a lot of sentiment that I thought was whack as fuck, Semmler, where basically people were like flaming Na'Vi for losing that final. Because, for example, like the Ancient game or whatever, they were up like 15-4 or something mad, and then there was that comeback to OT. They were saying all that, Semmler, like Na'Vi just throws, all Na'Vi does is throw it. It's basically like the same shit narrative they use for Team Liquid. The problem with that narrative is this. No, they don't. You mean when they're against FaZe Clan in some of the most epic finals ever, FaZe Clan can do a comeback? First of all, FaZe Clan's really good at doing comebacks against everyone. And secondly, if the only other team that can make you throw is the other best team in the world, you're not playing bad then, are you? You're just not playing peak CS. Because I thought that was like a really over aspect. Like, Na'Vi didn't throw this final. Yes, they had rounds that were bad. They had rounds they misplayed or made the wrong choice. It was a mega final, though. This was a really high level of CS in general, I thought.
Already that point alone, Mirage. If you go back to Na'Vi versus Astralis on Mirage, they're down 12-3 on Mirage and they fucking come back. It's like, that's a team that's throwing? No, that's a team that knows, that has that supreme winning confidence, that knows they can win. Doesn't matter the score. It's just one round after another, baby. It's just one round at a time. And if you have that confidence, you know you can win it. It doesn't matter what the score is. You can win. You can just utterly dominate your opponents. And that's exactly what Na'Vi did. Freaking round after round, perfect. One of the crazy comebacks in a semifinals in the stage like that. So like the whole idea that Na'Vi are throwing, it's like, get out of here. They have that killer instinct.
They have,
that confidence.
As I say, if it was anyone other than FaZe, dude, they would have won. They would have just won this match. Like, it wasn't that they threw in that sense. Also, by the way, if you're going to be a Na'Vi fan, think especially of Na'Vi in this sense. How are you as a Na'Vi fan just going to accept it? Like every time Na'Vi has a round, they had one in this tournament, dude, where like they had like Simple on a scout, and then they had like fucking Deagles for everyone else, and they won this like CT. Sure. I think it was on Mirage. They won like a CT against like a gun round against FaZe. If you're going to happily go, ha, we take those, then you also take the time you lose a fucking gun round, you twat. You're not even supposed to win that round. You're economically low against like a fucking full buy. So you have to take the rough with the smooth in Counter-Strike. Blow the fuck up, fans. There's never going to be a best of 5 where everyone plays perfect CS. You couldn't play perfect CS. So like people overvalue that aspect. It's just salt basically when their team loses.
Scrappy, dude. Just like remember Overpass, remember Ancient. Like this is where clips are pretty slick. You can actually go back and check it. But like Brokey and Rops, like 2 rounds where it's just as close as you can go, and it just doesn't happen to go their way in the clutch, and that costs the map. And then it happens again. So Overpass happens with Brokey not managing to stop the diffuse, and then the same thing on Ancient. Rops barely misses out on that clutch. It could have gone the other way for FaZe. FaZe could have very easily 3-0'd this whole thing. Inferno would have been a bit of a touch and go scenario, but like Overpass and Ancient, if those clutches go the other way, we're going into more rounds, and all of a sudden it's a totally different picture here from Na'Vi. Instead, it's Na'Vi that just like barely get it to break their way. That's how close it was in this.
FaZe had some miracle shit happen in this final. Like, not only did they have some amazing clutches that had to be won, but I'm just thinking, even the way that Nuke game ended on the 5th map, Semmler, Twists was like running out and just 2-1 bulleting people in the head, just open a sight. Like, normally, if people don't know, if you're a casual fan, the end of a game, especially like 5th game of a best of 5 and you're on T-side Nuke, that's when you go slower, if anything, mate. You get a bit more nervous. You don't want to throw your life away. You don't just rush. By the way, that's what's even cool that they won that way, because it was the same way they won the major. Carrigan did that crazy rush as well, if you remember, on up to Hut. So I love it when people make decisive ballsy plays that they win.
So go ahead.
No, go on.
No, but this was according to Twist as well. Apparently, he talked to some fans on his Discord afterwards. But like, this is a set strategy. So people were like, how did Electron not hear? Was it right? Because I was speculating this morning. I'm like, well,
they knew it somehow covers the sound.
Exactly. Right. There's so much going on. It's hard to plan that sort of thing. Maybe Twist, everything just stars aligned and it's perfect that he goes in. But apparently, Twist says that that's a legit strategy that they call Canada, and that he's supposed to go when all the utility is popping. That's when he's supposed to jump off a silo so that there's no noise. And sure enough, Alexander just gets smashed in the side of the head. He has no idea what happened. So he's dead, and Twist gets 2 kills because then he gets the guy in mini immediately, and it all just falls apart immediately for Na'Vi. So fucking brutal round. So cool to see. And also just to have the awareness to be able to call that kind of strategy when it matters like that. Like, again, I mean, it's just kudos to Kerrigan. And I really feel like I have to look more into this inner shine guy. Because like that's the one thing, and it's actually something that's like something that you guys were talking about with Casada a little bit in terms of like coaches and analysts and like their impact on the game. But I am very curious now to try and figure out like more about this inner shine guy and more about like the Na'Vi side of things, because it's not Blade who's doing it all on Na'Vi's side either. He has to have help. So like, what's the infrastructure like on these two teams now? Because they really feel like they're pushing the bar in terms of preparation, in terms of the game. They're raising the bar, and it feels like they are closest perhaps to having the system that works, whether it's just good players with like one analyst and a coach, or is it a whole analytical team on the side of Na'Vi that's feeding that info into Blade? Like, I don't like, we need to figure out a little bit more of like what the back end looks like for these teams now, because it feels like they're ready for each other and they're just head and shoulders above everybody else right now. Like, I don't, they seem untouchable in that respect. So a little bit of I guess I have to fill the investigative journalist side of things or whatever. Maybe
to me, the only angle about this final that I actually do think you can criticize on Na'Vi is just Simple's performance. Like, basically, the first couple of maps he was rolling, he was doing totally fine. He was looking good. He was getting loads of kills. If you notice, though, the last three, he definitely does start to like drop down in performance level. And here's where it's tough. This is what's tough, because it's not like he's bad. Like, if people don't know, there's literally only 3 players in the entire series got more kills than him over the 5 maps. So it's not like he's bad. He definitely didn't feed and throw the game or whatever. But the problem is, if you're Na'Vi, like, remember, it's with good reason he won the MVP after this final still, because his stats for the whole tournament were still nuts. So he was still incredibly
still top 3.
Very, very strong performance. But the issue is, this is the final. Like, this is where all he needs is, like, if he takes over one of those last 3 maps, he could have won the game for them. They could absolutely have won. So the issue I have is this. Since in Simple's case, we don't just call him good. We call him the GOAT. We call him number 1 in the world. We call him the best player of all time. In that scenario, like, it's not like I'm going to say you suck because you didn't, but those are the stakes you're playing at. People expect you to deliver every time. If you are a Michael Jordan type character, they expect you to be the hero. You're supposed to win the game. And that's one thing actually that I'm looking at a little bit now, because when I look at the major final, I look at this one now, I also get the vibe personally. I think FaZe is harder for Simple generally to play against. I'm not sure why. I'd have to spitball reasons, but like, It just seems like this one team has done a half decent job. Like, if you go and look at all the times they've played during the year, he just doesn't go off as often as he seems to against the other squads. Like, this seems like a team that somehow is able to, I wouldn't say neutralize him. He's not as dominant though. And it's cost him a couple.
It depends on how far down this path we want to go. Cause it's just like, okay, so say this whole marathon aspect of it, right? I mean, there's no getting around it that Simple looks like he's put on a bit of weight recently. And obviously there's going to be plenty of excuses for that because of just what the fuck is going on. But he
always says he lives out of a suitcase, right?
Yeah, he lives out of a suitcase. It's not a healthy lifestyle.
No,
You're
of course
living
not.
in hotel rooms for months at a time. You're not getting good food. It's really hard to have a decent diet. It's really hard to have decent sleep. It's really hard to keep a steady schedule. All of these things lead to good health, right? Good performance. Athletes, there's a reason why athletes, they go to sleep at the same time. They wake up at the same time. They get 8-9 hours of sleep a night. They're constantly, just trying to fine tune these things. And in a best of 3 that lasts 3 to 4 hours, okay, maybe you can get away with it. But if you're going into that 6th, 7th, 8th hour worth of having to stay focused, the mental, the physical has to play a role. That I've said this like so many times, but it always blew my mind that way back, even in like 2014, I think, Fnatic. So it blew my mind that already back then they were starting to think about this, but Fnatic was the first team that I'd heard of that actually eliminated soft drinks and all candy from their players' diets during tournaments. They were not allowed to have Coke. They were not allowed to have Monster. They weren't allowed to have anything that had sugar in it. They could have like the sugar-free Coke or the sugar-free or the coffee or tea, right? But they couldn't have anything with sugar in it just because they wanted to maintain that steady energy throughout the day, right? They were the ones who were actually starting to look at this sort of thing back then. Like, okay, performance level, how to on a physical side of things, like how much does this have an impact? And like, if we can keep you focused. So again, it's like, how far do we want to push in terms of, because if you're going to start having more and more matches like this, where it's a 2-week long event and you're going to have days where you're just on it for hours at a time, like, when are we going to start seeing more of the focus on the physical side of things that actually start to, could the physical side of things make the difference for a guy like Simple at that, where he's like solid on the first couple of maps and then just starts to drop off perhaps as the day goes on.
But it's weird. I don't know if, like, as you said, you're talking about the physical side. So obviously you can see he has put on some weight. He looks a bit chubbier now, etc.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's like, it's noticeable.
But like, I would say this. I wouldn't actually. I'm more concerned about like the mental state, quite frankly, because here's the issue I have. Even though like you have to realize when you're exceptionally as good as Simple as he could easily cover if he's not on his game because he's so mega, he can still be number one. Like that's the luxury of being so absurdly talented. But I have to say, if you look at the way he's behaved the last few months, basically ever since they knew and it was implied around the major that someone was leaving, we didn't know it was Boomich at the time. We all thought it was Electronic, obviously. But as soon as we knew the lineup was going to get broken up, he's been doing those like. His messaging has been really weird. Like, you notice multiple times he sort of implied he might take a break. Like maybe he just takes a few months off or leaves the lineup and has a sabbatical or something. Like
he's streaming Valorant.
And then it's just because they won Blast and they had a little bit of success now that he implied now he won't and now he's going to stay probably. And now maybe someday like I get the sense like he's pretty uncertain himself. It's just like I say, I think it's being masked by the fact that if you're top of the stats, people are going to assume everything must be great.
Yeah, that's the thing. Obviously, it's like how could he be? How could it's when you're going to show up and perform like that day after day. We're not even getting like food is one thing. We don't even know like how hard he's boozing, if he's boozing a lot or not.
Right, that can
also have an impact on your focus, your memory, your ability to dial in. So I mean, there's all these sorts of things like extracurricular, game, you know, that's not real, that could be playing an impact and could be weighing him down a little bit. But yeah, again, it's going into the player break. Now he's going to have 2 to 3 weeks to reset and hopefully, you know, we'll see that jump back up in form. Also,
by the way, this is how unfair we are in esports. Even though, to be fair, like I guess people did make a big deal out of it when it was FaZe had the stand-in and the one kind of eats it, etc. We all do just pretend as well. Like when everyone is going in on Simple, like I didn't perform well enough, we're all just acting like him having a guy who's only played like 2 tournaments now as a stand-in. It's just like that's the real team. That's how crazy the fragging is on Na'Vi and how good Simple is. We don't even give him a pass for having a fucking stand-in. Like remember, that guy isn't even the permanent player yet. Like I do suspect because of how he did at these tournaments, they probably will sign him. Like it just feels like they're vibing with him or whatever. But like every other team, we give you a leeway if you have not the real lineup. Like we're not really even doing that for Na'Vi, even though absolutely, mate, they almost won this tournament with the stand-in. So mad props in general to Na'Vi.
It's like their own curse. Like Electronic hardly saw a dip in his performance.
It's for sure.
Wild. He was like a 1.16 rating at the end of the event. You're just sitting here thinking, you're supposed to be calling. You're supposed, you know, you got Kerrigan down there with like a 0.96 at the end of the day. That's the opposing in-game leader from the grand finals, right? Head to head. And Electronic is up there fragging like a star. There's just so much firepower.
Here's the other angle as well. Here's the other reason why if I was a Na'Vi player or a Na'Vi fan, I wouldn't be at all like distraught at this result. I would think, hey, let's get him next time. Run the game back, play the game. Here's another reason why. Because just like the major, this was the only other tournament this year, Semmler, where bizarrely Rain just had the throwback tournament. Like, again, even in the final, like if people don't know, it was like the major again. My fifth map was Nuke, and when he went CT side, he just started doing it again. He just started pulling off like the fucking outside Nuke tutorial demo of like, here's how you control it. Like, what are you doing? This is the fucking final. So again, if you're Na'Vi, you can't expect that's going to happen. But if it does happen in your phase, you're going to win the game, hopefully. If your fourth best player goes off like that.
That was the other reason why I wanted to really look into Innershine, because there was a rumor going around that it was like Innershine took Rain aside going into that Nuke, and he was like, this is how you're going to play it. Like, this is what's going on. I
think Chad said something like that on Twitter, right? Yeah,
exactly. Something like that, where it's like, apparently it was just like, Rain, I'm going to give you all the tools necessary. Now go forth and conquer. And sure enough, Rain, clearly, you know, you saw it in terms of an individual performance, total beast. I mean, obviously Twists is just a total freak as well. He's really coming into his own on the team. Performing on the T side, only one. I think it was like positive in the finals on the T side in terms of stats. Actually, I can take.
Yeah, it was.
Right now.
He was the only one.
The only one out of all of the other players, you know, who was actually kicking ass and taking names on the T side. So he's
literally a CT meta, by the way. There was one player out of 10 who was positive on the T side.
What are you doing?
Over 5 maps. That's mental. Think about that. What a CT meta that is. Fucking hell.
It's amazing. This phase team just seems to be clicking in every way. It seems like you never see there's any weird looks, there's any pressure or anything like that, or like you're never getting any of the dirty glances that you can see in pressure moments where something.
Dude, this is another reason
with how close the second and the third map finished, where you could have had two opportunities where you could have ended it. It could have been 3-0 for FaZe if the clutch goes differently. And you don't see that phase. You don't see that phase in them. You see that they seem unrattled by it. They come right back into it and get to work on Mirage on the 4th map as if nothing had happened, as if they hadn't even, you know, as if that it couldn't be the case that they could be up 3-0 and hoisting the trophy then. So they've shown true class. They've shown real talent in this team right now. And it really seems like they're coming together and gelling as a team.
That's why I think they're the number one team, though. Because here's the thing. Na'Vi can shoot anyone out of the server. Like, they can be number 1, 2, and they're certainly still in the mix. But the difference with FaZe, and this is actually a quality that you only get in like all-time great teams. It's like you're saying, dude, they are the craziest doing the reset. They can even reset in the same game, hence the comebacks they do. Like, as you're saying, what's crazy is they almost have that like perfect chemistry that you have, where, you know, in the great teams, what you sort of want is that people, I know this sounds weird, but when it goes bad for you in the game is when you make it lighthearted and you just roll with it. And you're like, who fucking cares? And you make it like a joke. But then when it's the moment when you get serious, like that's really hard. That balance is super tough to do. Like, there's teams who can do the lighthearted thing the whole time, but that also usually means they're not sort of like a fucking killer instinct. They don't win the game as often. And there's teams that can be serious all the time, but then obviously the problem then becomes, I even thought Prime Astralis did this, dude. When Prime Astralis fell off their game and attended all those blasts, they started like raging when they were losing. You remember they were like punching tables and monitors. Like, that wasn't people just rolling with the punches. They were a team that was they only had one mode, and it was super serious. And so as a result, we're super serious about losing. The thing about FaZe is, they somehow like culturally within the team, they can sort of like, it's like they reduce the impact of getting a body blow from the opponent or losing a half, or like, dude, they've got to be the ultimate team at losing the big round, like lose a massive clutch where you almost win and then they just come right back and win anyway. I'm really impressed with the fortitude of this side, especially because that's exactly what people tried to pin on Carrigan from the old FaZe, the Nico Guardian one. They tried to pin on him the idea that he was going to always be a choker and that he couldn't sort of make use of these guys, and that if he got a bit uncomfortable, he's going to lose. It was a bit of the old Astralis. Carrigan, he's the choker still. That doesn't exist in this team anymore. In fact, again, you even saw in this final, Carrigan makes ballsy players too. He doesn't just sit back and let them kill everyone. He makes fucking plays himself.
He shut down Inferno in that grand final. Like,
for sure.
The one who ended it there. Like, it's like one thing that I took away, and I was just kind of confirming it as well, taking a quick glance at the stats, is just the impression that I had in the finals is that there's just solid fundamentals on FaZe, because they've killed their egos, right? It doesn't really seem like anybody's just trying to be the star or anything. It really feels like when you watch them play and interact with each other, they're teammates. And when they play on the server, when I was watching, the one thing that I took away was that they always seem to trade each other. It's the buddy system.
Oh, they're really good at that,
It's the buddy system in full effect, in full display. One guy goes down, boom, somebody's immediately there just trading that kill. It's not, and also no hesitation. It's like somebody's got to run in. That guy's running in first. He's drawing the fire. And then the other guys, the second guy and the third guy, like, it feels like when I watch FaZe, it's not some guy who's just like trying to make big plays happen. It just feels like I'm watching really solid fundamental CS where they're moving together as a unit. If somebody needs to run out, that person's running out. There's no hesitation. Or if somebody gets picked, bam, his teammate is immediately reacting and picking up the slack. And they went up a few percentage points on their traded, but by the end of the tournament, I think going into it was like 19, and they finished at 21 too. So like, so it feels like that kind of like gets backed up a little bit just after that grand finals, that impression that they're really doing really snappy and really good at trading the kills and making sure that they're working together as a unit. It feels like the stats kind of bear it out as well. So that's really cool to see, because I like that kind of CS. There's something about the stars that is always going to be, highlight. Everybody loves a highlight reel. Everybody loves a Modesty pop it off or a Simple or whatever. It's awesome. It's cool to see. Twist had his moments for sure in this grand finals. But what I love more, and this is why I've always loved those structured teams in the past, is I like solid fundamental CS. I like guys who, do trade, who play without ego and who trade, no hesitation, who go in with the buddy system. That's why I always bring it up in cast. It's like, this is the buddy system. This is them at work. One guy peaks, one guy swings, one guy, you're always working together. And so when you get those really solid duos together and they start working together and it starts panning out, it's just really sick to see. And I feel like FaZe have really got that going for them right now. So it's exciting. It's exciting because that's something. It's not, you're not just trying to hope that you're going to keep being able to ride this one player's high, like Movie Star Riders semifinal against FaZe. It was just, there was no like some Pius who was going to have like this crazy performance, or Deaths or Mopaz with this crazy opening percentage going in, into that semifinal. It felt like he could, just not miss an opening shot. All those individuals dropped off, and then the team wasn't there to pick it up again, right? Whereas with FaZe, it's like an individual can drop off a little bit, doesn't matter. You still got.
I'll give you the example. Like, because I've always said since they formed this team, the reason why I even thought on paper it made sense is exactly because no one has to be a superstar and carry every game.
Yeah.
They have, the joke is no one could know that Rain would perform like this. So if you add him in, they've got 4 players doing that, then that's just OP as fuck, isn't it? So as people, this final here shows exactly what we're talking about. Because remember, the last player to join this team that completed them was Rops, right? And when he joined in very similar fashion to how Nico joined phase all those years ago. You come from Mouse Sports as a lesser team, you join the top team, and you're going to go to the top of the world. The difference is they haven't needed Rops to be like Nico. Rops just has to do a job within the team because they really do collectively between. Well, here's what's genius. I'll probably do a video on it soon. It's like they've got a superstar, but it is just like they've divided up the stats. Like, so you've got like the crazy aim, like Twists can just get kills no one else can get. So you've got like an element like that, but you just have to do much else. You have like Brokey, just do like mid-round AWP, basically. We've got that nailed now. You've got fucking Rain that has all these insane CT spots he can play that are just absurdly efficient compared to anyone else. Then you have fucking, who's the other one I haven't done? Oh, Rops is the other player. And like I say, he was
even quiet in the
He was quite underwhelming. Yeah, he actually had a few
quiet
maps
in the grand finals.
but it didn't matter. He did just enough, and then the rest of the team carried him through, quite frankly. So that's all you need to know. Now, on Navi's side, we're talking about Simple didn't do quite well enough, and they almost won. Rops didn't even have to do that well, and they did win. That's what's great. They did win. They won the tournament, for fuck's sake. And there's how you know, also, Semmler, that they have a really good vibe in the team. Because even though, like, it's not like people criticize Rops, obviously the team won, but I saw some people were pointing out, like, where is Rops? If you notice, Twists went out of his way to sort of say something, I can't remember an interview on Twitter, that, like, actually people sort of can't see what Rops does in the team. He did that thing where you sort of play defense and imply like he was doing something in the game that just didn't show up on the scoreboard or something, you know. Sure. I don't really know that I believe it. It sounds more just like, I like my teammate, please don't flame him because we won the tournament. But I could also believe there's something to that, like that the vibe in this team is almost like, because it's not that you're absolutely you must carry. It's like, just do your job, just do what we ask. And then if the result's the result, the team you can take the plus and minus.
Well, it's a bit of a throwback, but you do remember, do you remember Nip back in the day, the heyday, you know, where it's like Fifth got flamed day in, day out, no matter what, but like the whole team came around him. Like they were also a team in the sense that like, didn't matter. They were there. They were always like just trying to protect him from the social media just because he was doing his job. He was doing the job that they asked of him. And, you know, it's fair enough. That was how the team was functioning and it was them against the world. You could have that same kind of vibe here as well with FaZe where it feels like it's the team.
Exactly.
Doing it together. There's no like divisiveness that you can see.
No, what you do is you just sit them down and go, look, not everyone can carry in the server. Only so many people can be world class. So all you've got to do is just do some things to make up for what other people aren't doing. Like, for example, for Flaren, you know, if I wanted some water or my bag hadn't been taken there, maybe you do that. Maybe that's like the hidden thing you do. Whatever, you get the joke.
There it is.
Yeah.
I was going to let you.
No, it's all right. It's all good. It's all good. But, you know, on the joke is he's just the one that counts the money. Then he's like, yep, that's 14,000, Mr. Heaton. Like,
there you go to get right.
And then Heaton's like,
and then it went through the NIP organization,
exactly.
And then it was never seen again.
No, he goes, it's all right. I'll just put this into the NIP accounting system, and you'll get it real soon. Like, the joke is in the NIP system, it's like that's not even scanned. Like, isn't that like a shredder? No, what are you talking about? Shredded all their money and just took it out of the back. It may as well have been. That's what they may as well be doing, right? I know, NIP. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.